It's 11:03 a.m. on Monday, the 16th of February, 2026, and I'm running a few minutes late due to distractions, which happens to be the message that I'm going to deliver now. That's just a piece of natural business getting in the way, and it's suitable because there's two kinds of distractions. Now, I'll get into those two kinds of distractions in a minute, but the first thing that made me think about this was somebody else mentioning in when they were preaching that if you're distracted, you should repent of that sin. And I instantly thought, well, if somebody walks in front of you and takes your vision by walking in front of you, you're distracted. Are they therefore a sin? That person is a sin because they walked in front of you? Distractions are not a sin. However, the last few days I've been somewhat distracted myself. And I didn't post a quiz, a poll over the last couple of days. And I uploaded videos, but I didn't upload them on the first day. I uploaded two yesterday instead. However, yesterday was Sunday, and I normally upload two on a Sunday anyway, or I will be. I'll upload a regular Sunday weekly meeting, and I will every day upload one of these meetings, the 11 a.m. Or the 6 p.m. Meetings. And in doing so, there'll be so many that I'll probably end up uploading two a day, pretty much every day. So, distractions. Again, somebody walking in front of your path, that is a distraction, but you know, how could it be a sin? This person said distraction is a sin. And I looked back over the last couple of days and noticed that, yes, well, I've been distracted over the last couple of days. And what has distracted me was a choice of distraction. I made it a choice to take a day off, as it were, and to entertain myself for a day. That day has extended into 2 days due to the method that I used, which was to play a game. I haven't played a game in 2 years, and the kind of game I play takes normally about 3 days to play. It's a game called Rome, and it takes around about 20 hours to play a game. So I decided, oh, well, I'll play this. And it's a game that you can play however long you want and stop after a certain turn. I've played 100 odd turns, and each turn takes about, on average, let's say 10 minutes a turn. Now, that means I've been away from doing godly things, etc., for 100 lots of 10 minutes approximately. Some of the time it might be 5 minutes, some of the time it might be 15 minutes, depending on what you do within that turn. Again, it's a game. I have looked at the last couple of days, and this is what that kind of intended distraction does. My routine is broken, and it's now difficult to get back into my routine. I haven't finished with the game because I'd played it for 2 days and there's still maybe about 20% to play. And that basically means that I will play it more, whether I might play it today and get it out of the way, or whether I might do all my regular stuff each day and then instead of watching TV for an hour to get my brain off things, I might play the game for an hour to get my brain off things each night, which is something that I might actually contemplate doing in the future. However, the distraction side of things. You see, firstly, that one day that I decided I'm going to take a day off became two, as I didn't want to just leave it a third played. I just wanted to play on. And I thought, oh, look, I'll just try and finish it in 2 days. What happens? Well, there's 2 days that I've got nothing done. How does that make me feel? Not happy? Sort of in some kind of joy of playing the game during the game, but it's a worldly joy. And my Christian walk, I'm not happy with that. My relationship with God has suffered because of it. I normally, throughout the day, have God on my mind an awful lot of the time. Primarily, I'm either making videos like this where I'm talking about godly things, or I'm going over blogs which are godly messages, or I'm editing videos and it's a godly action to edit godly videos, but I'm not necessarily thinking of God in communication with God. But while I'm watching the video, I'm watching what I talked about, which was a godly message. So I'm still doing something that is keeping a godly mentality there. And if I was to go hang out the washing, while hanging out the washing, much of my thought would be on godly things. It might be on a new message that might be in my mind. It might be on prayer, or I might be singing an old hymn in my mind. And that's actually a recent thing. I'm not one to sing songs, especially in my mind, etc. But in the last couple of weeks, some songs have just been popping up in my mind, songs I hadn't heard for 30 years, etc. But while playing the game, my mind is so focused on the game that that's it. It's just the game for 2 days running. So my mind has been totally off God, except for maybe half an hour when I get up and half an hour before I go to sleep, etc. But the great majority of the day is in a different world, and I'm not affording godly thought within that time, especially due to the difficulty of that while playing the game. You need to concentrate on what you're doing. So you're thinking 100% on a game. My relationship with God has suffered. Not much. I feel like I've gone back a couple of months. Now, considering I've been back in Christianity for, let's say, 9, 10 months now, let's say 10 months, because it was around about April, let's say, last year that I came back to Christianity. If I've been back in Christianity for 10 months and I feel like I've now been knocked backwards about 2 months merely by 2 days of cutting, not cutting as in not having a relationship at all, but cutting the communication side of that relationship. It's like Your parents are still your parents if you don't talk to them for a day. If you still have parents around or the like, or your children are still your children if you don't talk to them for a day. However, if you were to not talk to them for a year or two, your relationship with them might be different. It often will be less than what it was. If you only talk to your children once every 2 or 3 years, well, that's a different story. But if you're doing it less than you normally do, then something suffers. So I urge myself here, firstly, to get back on track. And I say that knowing that the rest of today I might go play the game to get it out of the way. And there's a little bit of disturbance inside me when I say that. It's not a sinful thing that I want to entertain myself for a while, but there's a disturbance in my relationship with God. And not like a sinful disturbance, but still a disturbance. The relationship, the communication is somewhat broken for a while. Distractions, if they are personal intended distractions rather than somebody walking in front of you, are something that will get between you and God. Get away from it, the distractions, that is, and focus on God constantly. I'm finding it difficult now, or more difficult than I was, to hear from God right this moment. Now, when I say hear from God, I might not hear an audible voice. I might not even hear a voice in my head. But the feeling that I have in my heart can often move me and make me feel that I should do one thing or another. That might maybe changes that might be suitable or something that I should do or whatever it might be. God can move and I sense what it is that I need to know. And that sensation is not easy at the moment. The distraction has disturbed that communication. I don't like it. I feel like there's so much more to say right now, but my ability to even communicate this is quite difficult. What does it mean for the average person, though? Well, I've just lived a couple of days pretty much like an average person, having maybe half an hour in the morning and half an hour at night where you might have some mindset for God. But the rest of the day, you are filled with whatever it is that you're doing work-wise, or whatever it is that you're doing family-wise, or whatever it is that you're doing chore-wise, whether it be cleaning the house or doing the shopping, etc. While you're doing the shopping, you're thinking, well, what do I need to get from this aisle? And you walk down the aisle and you think, do I need those? Do I need those on that shelf? Do I need those on that shelf? No, I don't know. Yeah, I'll grab one of those. And in my mind right now, it's not God, it's shopping that's in my mind. Well, when I was shopping, I would half think of what I'm uh, buying, and I would still have a little bit of mindset on God. And that was because I had built upon that and built upon that and built upon that, as in I would get a little bit of a mindset on God and think of God at first, initially, say 10 months ago, let's say about an hour a day. And then after a month, it might be 2 hours a day and 3 hours a day after another month and 4 hours a day. And 10 months later, it's 10, well, it was 10, 12 hours a day. In fact, more because I'm doing godly things for a long time through the day. But it developed and grew stronger and longer and longer. What I'm saying here is, even though you're shopping, for example, think about what's in your mind. Think about, do I walk down the shopping aisle and do I have a thought of God while I'm walking down that shopping aisle, or is it just everything that's on the on the shelves and everything that's on my shopping list, and that's all that I'm thinking about? Because I got to a stage where even doing those things, God was taking half of my thought. I might have a thought of what's on the on the aisle, and then I might be thinking, "Oh, right, I should preach on this subject." And what about that? What's on that over there? Okay, yeah, and yeah, I could add this to that particular message. And still godly thoughts if I'm talking about, if I'm thinking about creating a particular message for God. But that takes practice, as in you've got to firstly choose to do it. Firstly, every single moment, think about what you're thinking about. It's a hard thing to, it's a simple thing to do, but a hard thing to put in effective words. In other words, while I'm driving the car, just, am I thinking about only driving the car, or am I thinking about God while I do this? I should think about God while I drive the car. Because if you notice, when you drive a car, you get so good at it that you're not really thinking about how fast you're going, whether you are turning at the next intersection or not, or how far you're away from the car in front of you, or whatever it is that you think of as a brand new driver. After a while, those things are just secondary thoughts. There's something in the back of your mind, not in the front of your mind. And you might be thinking about what you need to do at work today on the way to work, even though you're driving a car. Well, what I'm saying is, why not think on God, even though you're driving a car? Think about what you can do for God. Think about if you can create messages for God, what messages you can create for God. Think about what you'd like to tell other people on behalf of God. Think about what your call might be. Think about whatever it is. Think about godly things. It might not necessarily be prayer, might not necessarily be direct communication with God. But if you're thinking about, um, oh, as an usher, I might, if I'm an usher, I might have a new idea that might make welcoming people actually a little easier or a little better. Or I've got an idea that if we can get the pastor to suggest that people sit in certain places, then particular ushers can notice whether they're at church or not. And if they haven't been at church for a few weeks, we can follow up on them. But that requires a matter of the pastor having to ask people to sit in regular places, and ushers sitting in regular places and things like that, whatever it might be. And that's only for big churches. For a church of 20, 30 people, it doesn't matter. You know everybody in the church. If somebody's not there, everybody knows. But if the church is 100 plus, that's a different story. will have less idea of whether a person's regular or whether a person's there or not, unless you're actually looking for them, especially when it gets to churches of thousands. Well, that's a different story. They have an overflow problem that when you get to a couple of thousand people, a stranger can walk in and nobody knows them. Nobody's going to walk up and say, "Hi, how are you?" And they're going to feel a bit like a stranger because there's always people talking to each other because they all know each other. They're all talking to somebody that they've met before, except you know nobody. But nobody knows that you know nobody because nobody knows you're a stranger. There's so many people there, they don't know all the faces. And nobody can notice that you're not talking to anyone because they're all talking to their friends. So you walk in and you feel alone amongst a group of a couple of thousand people. Then you might decide, oh, I'll go and find a small church and feel more welcome. Or you might come back a few times. And you might come back half a dozen times and still not once has anyone welcomed you or the like. And you might then say, I'm, I'm not going back there again. I'll go to a small church or something like that. So people that come into a large church can feel a little less inclined to stay on the friendship side of things because it's harder for them to get friends in that church. They might stay if they like the atmosphere of thousands of people and they want to feel like they're involved without actually having too much communication with anyone and actually get into a relationship with anyone in the church. In other words, more like going into a movie cinema where you don't talk to anyone else. You just go in, you listen, and you go out, and it's consumer church. Do we really want our churches to be a bunch of people coming in, listening, and leaving? Or do we want to find out who a person is when they come in? Not, oh, in case they're a bad person or anything like that, but more so, oh, this person could do with some prayer about this issue, or this person needs some guidance on these beliefs, or this person might think they've got a relationship with God, but they don't have a real relationship with God. They don't really know God. Or this person might not even be saved, but they've been going to churches thinking that going to churches they might get an answer in life. But we don't know if it's a large church and that communication isn't there. If there's a church of 15, 20 people and a new person walks in, every single person in that church knows they're a new person. And every single person in that church, most of them, will want to go up and say hello. Some of them might not have the courage to go up and say hello, but they would recognize that you're a new person and it's like, oh, I'd like to meet that person. I hope somebody introduces me, being a less courageous person. However, everybody notices and everybody thinks, oh, great, there's another person who'll start coming to church. There is a family-like relationship in a small church, which doesn't exist in a large church. So, distractions are like walking into a large church in a sense, because when you're distracted, everything's happening around you, but it's not happening with you and God so much. So, what do you do about distractions? Well, when it comes to relating to God more, thinking about God more, etc., throughout the day, try and remind yourself, have I communicated with God much over the last hour or two? mate, I'll try and think about God more, or godliness more, or evangelism more, or whatever else more over the next couple of hours. Depending on your situation, it might be, hey, I can take opportunities to tell people about God. Because in some people's circumstances, there are many opportunities that they could tell people about God, but they're just not taking the opportunities. Why? Well, their mind's not on God. Their mind's on whatever else. They might be at a sporting event and in the crowd going through the gates, but their mind is on, ooh, who's playing today and who's going to win, and I hope my team wins. And their mind could be on, hey, how are you today? You a supporter of my team? Oh, great. Look, hey, are you a supporter of God? Or whatever. I don't, know what ways you might create a conversation when entering a sporting field. However, we don't think of talking to the person next to us in public. Why? God's not on our mind. What is on our mind is worldly things. If God was on our mind while sitting at the train station waiting for a train, we might think of turning to the person next to us who's on their phone and saying, uh, "Hey, how you doing? Can I have a chat with you for a while? How's life?" Or whatever it might be. But if God's not on your mind, you're not going to do those things. People, let's get the distractions out of our life, the chosen distractions, and focus on God, even while doing the shopping, even while catching public transport, even while driving the car, even while whatever it is. We can still have our minds on God more. Okay, bless you. Govern well. Encourage.